What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me once again to break down our favorite late round running back targets. It's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, we talk about this all the time, but diving deep into these positions is some of my favorite things to do in fantasy football, and I think it's where people like us who are total football nerds and like looking into statistics and trends and stuff, where we gain a slight advantage over others, and sometimes we wind up screwing ourselves over at the same time.
For sure. And as people that tend to skew receiver heavy earlier in drafts, this is
Yep.
where we have to make our money and our bread is buttered if we want to have consistency. Because I saw a tweet on Twitter that made a lot of sense and made me laugh at the same time. Zero RB doesn't mean you don't draft any running backs. It means you just don't draft them early. And if
Yep.
you don't draft them early, that means you have to draft more late and try and find value. And Brian and I hopefully found some value. I am in the middle of an underdog draft, Brian, that I'm kind of excited about, to be honest. I was
Uh,
talking, I'm actually frequent guest on this podcast. Jared Smola also happens to be in that same draft.
oh, cool.
And he did bring up a good point. So I'll tell you what my roster is looking like. I'm only through 6 picks, I think. Yeah, I just made my 6th round pick. But I started 4 running backs: Saquon, Najee Harris, J.K. Dobbins, Miles Sanders. Very atypical for what I typically do. But Smola did make the point that you can only really start 3 of those guys, and to use your first 4 picks where you can't play one almost basically any week is a bit of a quandary. So maybe if you want to start running back heavy, you start 3 of your first 4. But yeah, so I started Barkley, Harris, Dobbins, Sanders, and then I went Lamar. So I locked in that Ravens stack with Lamar and Dobbins. So if that hits, that
Ooh.
works well. I was hoping to get Mark Andrews too, but that did not happen. But I did get Kenny Galladay, so I have some Giants love going. I'm gonna hopefully target Danny Dimes as my QB too, and go from there. I've been loving the hell out of these
I was, I,
underdog best ball drafts.
you're all about those G-men this year.
Dude, it's crazy. It's probably stupid, and I'm probably going to regret it. But to be honest, I did want to take Jonathan Taylor, and I put him in my queue and was trying to draft him. And I think my work computer messed it up, but maybe it'll work out for me. Maybe not. I don't know. I did do some rankings adjustments though, Brian. Obviously we will talk running backs here in a second. But I moved Jonathan Taylor to my running back 5, and I moved Saquon to running back 7. So Henry, McCaffrey, Dalvin, Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Zeke, and then Saquon, and then Antonio Gibson as my RB8, which is a
Wow.
little spicy, but that's right now. But yeah, it's that's the thing about, especially as I'm doing these drafts. The more I do them, the more I realize I'd rather have this player than that player. It helps me figure out who's going to be sitting there. I'm still waiting on a few things. Like I want to figure out where the hell Darrell Henderson's going to go, because if you look at his ADP,
Yeah,
he's
you don't want to
kind of
jump the gun.
he's kind of going. Like if you look at his ADP right now, he's going as like running back 30 in like the 60, around pick 60 or so. But I feel like and I was talking to Small about this too, is it really feels like he's really going kind of in that tier above there with like David Montgomery and
Yeah.
like around pick 30 or 40. David Montgomery, Chris Carson, DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs. Like I feel like he's a lot closer there, but that also might be, kind of our Twitter bubble analyst drafting, whatever you want to call it. Like,
I feel
when you're
Yeah, I was just gonna say I feel like he's gonna be one of the most polarized players come like
Yeah.
once drafts like really get ramped up, because people either love him or they think that the Rams are going to give him the bulk of the touches, kind of like you and I. And then
Yeah.
other people are going to be on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, just like, oh no, they're going to bring somebody in, or this is going to be a full-fledged running back by committee. So yeah, he's going to be somebody that's really intriguing to monitor the ADP as we get closer to the season.
Yeah. Like I feel like you're going to have to take him at that 3-4 turn in order to lock him in for sure. But you may be able to sneak him through to the 5th or 6th round. Then you're going to feel much, much better about him. Okay. So let's dive into a few names that we wanted to talk about. One of the picks that you came up with was on my short list and was going to be one of my picks until you mentioned it. So I did a little pivot off there, but I found a name that I could go to, so I'm very happy with that, and we can obviously talk about him. And then you got one that I couldn't disagree with you more on. So this should
great.
make for some quality convos. Let's start with an agreement. Latavius Murray, running back 48, 119 overall. I'm 100% on board.
I still don't understand why people have not come to the conclusion that this guy, regardless of what we think about Tony Pollard, Alexander Mattison, all these people, Latavius Murray is clearly the best handcuff option in the NFL and has standalone value at that as well. I mean,
that's the key piece right there. I think the fact that worst case scenario, he has standalone value. Best case scenario, Kamara,
he's at top 10.
Yeah, top 5.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've been thinking about this more and more with the Michael Thomas injury.
Yes.
We'll see what that looks like. Obviously we talked about it with Matt Harmon. And if you missed our conversation with Matt Harmon talking second-year receivers, please go listen to that. It's one of my favorite podcasts we've done all season long and maybe all year. Had some great conversations, some great information in that. So go check that out. It's a little bit longer, but it's worth your time. I promise you. But with Thomas out, I'm optimistic that he's back sooner. There's some, pessimism that he won't be back till November. The week 6 bye could, returning after that makes a lot of sense. All that to me says Taysom Hill is your starter week 1. And this is a run heavy, run focused, short passing game, and Latavius and Kamara, because Latavius and Kamara are going to be on the field. Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith and Adam Troutman, as much as I like some of these pieces, you're not building your offense around that. So you're going to run the ball. You're going to be conservative because you have a decent offensive line. You have a solid defense. And you're going to hold the ball. You're going to control it. And you're going to run the hell out of it. And it's going to look a lot like Baltimore and a lot like San Francisco and a lot less like we've seen with New Orleans in the past, and all that to me screams go get Latavius Murray, who I think was already a value, but now is just even more of a locked and loaded, run top 25-ish running back at the end of the season.
Yeah, let me spit some fire at you real quick. All right. For the last 2 years, Latavius Murray has finished as RB30 and RB32. So how the hell is he still going RB48 inwards RB50? That doesn't make any sense. Okay. 146 carries each of his 2 seasons with New Orleans here, over 637 yards first year, 656 the second year, 4 and 5 touchdowns these 2 years. In 2019, when Alvin Kamara missed time, this dude ran for 221 yards on 48 attempts for 3 touchdowns and added 14 receptions in a 2-game span without Kamara. So we're looking at immediate propulsion into RB1 status. Last season, with Kamara slightly banged up, Latavius Murray actually out-carried Kamara in 5 games. He had 10 plus carries in 8 games over the season. He averaged 4.5 yards an attempt over the entire year. And then when looking at this team minus Drew Brees, who has now moved on, in the previous 2 years, in the 9 games that Drew Brees did not play, the Saints basically ran at a 50-50 clip in terms of rushing and passing attempts. So this guy is going to be going into an offense minus their all-world quarterback. Their offensive passing efficiency is going to drop. So that Sean Payton is going to want to keep the ball on the ground, keep it out of keep Jameis Winston from throwing those 30 picks again, or Taysom Hill from making bad decisions. And minus Michael Thomas, this only leads me to believe that Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray will be on the field together a lot, with Kamara split out. So Murray from the get-go is going to have standalone value at double-digit touches right away. And going this late in drafts with the potential of being an RB1 is something that, how could you not leave your draft room with this guy?
Yeah, I don't understand it. Like, I'm looking up, like, yeah, I mean, Alvin Kamara has seen 3 seasons over 100 yards, or 100 targets rather, and his only season that he didn't out of the 4, he got 97. Like, is this, he could easily have 125, 130 targets.
Easy.
Like, in full PPR, I think he becomes like even more interesting from at the elite options. Like, if you're talking, you know, beyond, you could make the case that you could take him over Dalvin Cook. You can make the case you take him over my guy Derrick Henry. But yeah, I think Latavius is a smash, and in I think in leagues where you start running back heavy, you can be patient and take receivers and tight ends and other positions, and then grab Latavius as your running back 3, 4, 5, something like that. And then in other leagues where you're receiver heavy, he makes for a great option as a guy that you can play week 1 as a safe floor, but also has the upside that maybe Tony Pollard and Alexander Madison produce. But you're getting that week 1 volume right away. Like, he should see 10 to 15 touches a week, even with a healthy Kamara. I mean, maybe 20 touches if it's a good week and they're winning and they're controlling the clock.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why he's not going to immediately be seeing, 35, 40% of all the offensive snaps. And like you said, he's going to get the bulk of the ground game here, because I think you're going to see a lot more traditional sets out of New Orleans. You're going to see them running with a fullback in the backfield with Murray behind him. And this is what they like to do to grind out games, and knowing they're going into a division now that is going to be better on offense. Carolina is going to be better. Atlanta is likely to be slightly more efficient on offense. Like, these games are probably going to be closer than what they were able to do last year when they steamrolled the division. So they're going to have to run the ball, and run the ball good, which only leads me to believe that Latavius Murray is almost a shoo-in for a top 30, top 25 finish. And at RB 48, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, no, I think I'm 100% on board with this. Now it's time for some divisiveness, Brian. We gotta throw some names in so we can have a little division. And I'll start by triggering you. Devin Singletary, RB 43, 106 overall, is absolutely the Bills running back to own. I don't know what we're doing. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. The separation is getting even more in Zach Moss's favor, and I just don't get it. Zach Moss is not. I mean, okay, I don't want to say like he's not a good football player. He's just not. Like, he's fine. Like, he can be a volume guy, but he's not a pass catcher. And as we've learned, especially in anything half or full PPR, that volume in the passing game is super critical to being an elite option. This offense is incredible. I think they're going to have a ton of opportunities to score. Emmanuel Sanders is producing in practice. They have a lot of pass catchers. They have a lot of interesting options. I want a running back to emerge, and maybe it just doesn't. Maybe we'll be battling this out for the next 3 seasons, and no running back will ever become quote unquote the guy. But Devin Singletary was a better player in fewer touches. Had averaged more yards, averaged on 156 carries, where Moss saw the 4.3 on 112. But those catches, 50 targets in a shared time, that could be 65, 70, 75 targets, 80 targets. And all of a sudden you're talking about a guy with 1,000-yard potential, 40 to 50 catches.
Whoa.
I mean, he had 150 touches 50 rushing attempts last year and had almost 700 yards.
I'll give him 1,000 total yards.
I mean, he had 1,000 total yards last year.
No, he was at like 9 something.
All right, whatever. It's 6. I can't do math off the top of my head, but 687 and 269.
956.
Okay, that's pretty damn close to 1,000 yards. I think 1,200 yards, 30 catches, and 6 or 7 touchdowns is very much in the realm of outcomes, and something that if I'm drafting him as RB43 in the 9th, 10th, 11th round, I'm going to be ecstatic to have that kind of upside.
I will give you the point that I feel like people will have soured on Devin Singletary being the last 2 seasons, like 2 years ago when he kind of burst onto the scene. People are like, oh man, this guy's going to be great in Buffalo. And then last year he was probably going somewhere in the like 4th or 5th round in drafts. And then he kind of didn't really produce up to expectations. So people are more likely going to be on the Zach Moss train. And although I feel like Moss fits better in this system, especially inside the red zone, getting that 2-round discount on Devin Singletary makes a ton of sense. And the potential that as we get closer to the season, now that they've added Matt Breida, and in that same range, you have guys like Tony Pollard, Jamal Williams, Kenyon Drake. I think you see him slip even more. Then he becomes somebody that I'm a lot more intrigued about at that price.
Yeah, and in terms of upside, like maybe if Josh Jacobs goes down, Kenyon Drake is a guy that could vault. But most of those names are just going to be complementary pieces no matter what happens.
And they're not playing in the Bills offense.
Right. Either. Yeah. Like they're not in that explosive up tempo, high impact. I'm very excited to see where this situation can go. I guess the only concern is if you look at kind of at the end of the year, Zach Moss saw 13, and 12 attempts while while Singletary went, from seeing somewhere in the double digit range to 7, 8, 10. So, went down a little bit. I'm optimistic that he can see a consistent volume. I know he's 5'7" and 200 pounds, so he's not exactly the real, ideal size. Yeah, but I think he can. I think he can absolutely be that volume monster.
Real quick before we get off of Devin Singletary, one thing that had me going away from him last year was his fumbling issues. He only fumbled once last year, so it seems like he got some things together. The coaching staff got with him, and he changed up his style, kind of like a la Tiki Barber back in the day. So maybe this is Devin Singletary's breakout.
Yeah. I'm optimistic that it can happen, but I'm willing to. But that's the thing is like. Worst case scenario, he is in a part-time role. You don't like where he's going. You drop him for, some waiver wire. It's not going to cost you. Where if you're even taking Zach Moss where he's going, that 2 rounds is going to be a big difference. And you're going to be taking you're going to be having the opportunity cost to take, I'm pulling up ADP right now just so I can give you some actual names instead of talking out of my butt. But, you're going to be giving up the opportunity to take real names. Like you could be taking Juju Smith-Schuster if he's your receiver of choice, Deebo Samuel, Robbie Anderson, Michael Pittman, Antonio Brown. If you're Hunter Henry, Jalen Hurts, or Ryan Tannehill are there. Like at that range, that's crazy. And then you just drop down a little bit more. And that's when you get into Singletary range, and that's where you're talking about. I mean, there is some interesting names at receiver there too, and we will be doing a receiver episode in the coming week or coming days, and I'm very excited to throw some names out there that are kind of in this range as well. But all right, Brian, it's time to go. Tell me why. I don't like what are we doing? Is this a fade Chase Edmonds play, or is this a James Conner and Chase Edmonds could be like? Talk to me about your optimism for James Conner.
All right, let me just say this is one of my homer picks, as I have like 2 guys in the NFL who I have just an absolute 1,000,000% affinity for. James Conner is one of them, with Larry Fitzgerald being the other. I just love this dude's story. I love where he's come from. I love the fact that he got drafted into the same city that he went to school with. He's basically done everything right in the NFL. And he produced right after Le'Veon Bell was there, and Le'Veon was trying to talk crap that Pittsburgh couldn't do anything without him. Now, that being said, the past 2 years have not been great for James Conner. He wasn't healthy last year. The previous year, he only played 10 games, I believe it was. But he's going into a more I want to say friendly offense for the running back, not necessarily because of the way that they're going to use them, but because of the way that this offense operates. It's going to open things up for James Conner. He's not going to be going up against 8-man boxes. He's not going to be coming onto the field in situations where the defense knows that he's going to be getting the ball straight up the middle, like in Pittsburgh.
Like, how is it different though? Like Big Ben, all the receivers, like
yeah,
that was a whole explosive passing game.
I understand that, but playing against a Pittsburgh defense with Ben Roethlisberger, who has almost no mobility, those linebackers can kind of wedge into the line of scrimmage without any worry whatsoever of Roethlisberger scrambling out and breaking containment. Yeah. Kyler Murray back there, no chance in hell are these linebackers going to be crashing in the middle of the line of scrimmage. They're going to have to maintain their positions on the field, and they're going to have to be spying, leaving more room for Conner to get going, which we've seen him be able to truck fools all over the field. So I think this dude is going to take over that red zone package for this team. I think they're going to try to get Kyler Murray a little less excited near the goal line and try to utilize him less on the ground trying to score. And I think that it's going to be Conner who takes those touches. And yes, he's going to lose all those receptions to Chase Edmonds, but I think the touchdown upside here is double-digit touchdowns, as we saw Drake with 10 last year and 8 the previous year after being acquired. So I think getting a guy who has the potential to score 10 TDs as it's going anywhere from like RB34 to RB38, yes, sign me up, please.
Yeah, I mean that's legit, but it's going to be like there's going to be 5 to 7 games where he finds the end zone, and the games where he doesn't, he's going to be basically costing you a week. So, I'm the Chase Edmonds apologist. I think this guy has top 10, top 15 running back upside this season. I think he has the opportunity to seize this role and make it his. I think this is an offense that's going to want to play up tempo, that's going to want their running back to be able to play all 3 downs. And maybe James Conner gets a little short yardage work. Maybe he gets a little work around the goal line. But as the season trucks along, he is going to fall apart like he always does. And it's going to be the Chase Edmonds show. And I just like, good luck. That's all I'm saying. Good luck. I love the story. I love what he, all the stuff he went through with his cancer and fought back and made the playoffs or made the NFL and was awesome. And I loved watching him at Pitt, but this season for this team, it's Chase Edmonds' world and everybody else is just living in it.
I mean, just kind of looking at the numbers too. I'm looking at fantasy data right here. Chase Edmonds is going pretty close, very similar situation as to Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Edmonds is going close to 2 rounds ahead of James Conner. And albeit Edmonds does have the highest upside of these 2 guys. Like if they're looking for a potential home run guy, it's going to be Edmonds, not Conner. But I just think that the floor for what Conner can offer in terms of his touchdown upside on a week-to-week basis is something that I can stomach at where he's going, anywhere 85 to pick 100. So
yeah, I mean, if he's Kenyon Drake, you're gonna get tremendous value on him.
Yeah,
but I don't.
And that's where I think it's going. That's what I
like, and I just don't think that. I mean, like, so. Drake was the guy, right? Drake was the 65%, or whatever you want to call it. I think that number goes to Edmonds and Edmonds percentages it's obviously going to flip because Edmonds was a little more running game or a little more passing game, and Drake was a little more running game. I think it flips that way, but I think James Conner is stepping into the Drake role, who. And if he scores 10 touchdowns, he's obviously from a season-long perspective going to look awesome.
All right. Okay. Here's my offer. So I don't think we did one of these last year, but the previous year we made a bet to where we had to change our emojis or our Twitter profile pictures. So this is my offer. I'll take James Conner straight up versus Chase Edmonds for, let me see, season-long total points in half PPR. For a profile pic change to some crappy Ohio picture.
Okay. Done. 2 weeks you have to leave it up, and you have to set it for the week before the big game and the week after the big game. Well, I guess we won't know until the end. So we'll have to do it. We'll have to figure out
maybe maybe we can make it up until the Ohio State Michigan game. So the week of Thanksgiving.
we should do a season long because I don't want to hear Ken, or James. I don't want James Conner to fall apart, and I don't want to hear. Well, James Conner was awesome for the last 3 games, and if we had made the bet, so we'll do a full season. We'll do a profile picture swap, and maybe we can figure out something around March Madness or some other time where it'll make a lot of sense. But yes, we can absolutely do that. We can figure out a few things. I'm happy to do like a charity donation or some other stuff, because I think these bets are going to be fun and something to keep us on to be fun to track as the season rolls along. I we're going to agree on some stuff. I think we need to agree on or disagree on a few more things, but we'll get there. I still, if James Conner falls like into that Zach Moss range, okay, I'm with you there. But like, let's look at, okay, so Moss is right there. I'd rather have Kenyon Drake. I'd rather, man, these are some names. There's clearly a tier break right there, but you could get fun, like give you a full PPR. JD McKissick could be interesting. Gus Edwards could be some fun if he's going to ruin the J.K. Dobbins train. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is Chase Edmonds' world, and I'm working on my upside league winning running backs article right now that should hit Big Pigskin next week, and you best believe Chase Edmonds is prominently featured.
Of course.
All right. So what's the last and final one on our list here, Brian? We each picked a couple. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. Make sure you mash that thumbs up. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. And in the comments below, let us know your favorite running back going in, round 9 or later, probably. Or if you like you're with me on Chase Edmonds, and just put Chase Edmonds in the chat and thank me later. I'm gonna cheat a little bit here, Brian. But I think there's potential in New York, and I think as fun as Michael Carter is as a prospect and what his potential could be, from a dynasty perspective, I feel like we're all just making a big assumption there. And there's lots of value, especially when you consider like Tevin Coleman was a running back that we were taking in the top 4 or 5 rounds the past 2 years when healthy, and Robert Saleh is there. They brought Mike. What's his name? What's the guy? Michael LaFleur. They brought him from San Francisco. So there's already that relationship. It seems like Tevin Coleman's like, okay, I'm going to, there was kind of an understanding there. There was clearly a respect because he made the jump with them. They made sure they brought him in. I think Tevin Coleman, RB50, 134 overall, makes a hell of a lot of sense. And I'm still going to pound the table for LaMichael Pirine. I know, that this may end up blowing up in my face, but at RB83, at pick 329 overall, if he gets cut or doesn't make the squad or doesn't really play like you expect in those first few weeks, it's fine to say goodbye. Like, it's super easy to cut him at that point. Now, this is all banking on Zach Wilson being under center, which is not a sentence I thought I would be uttering heading into 2021 fantasy football, but the Jets offense has a lot of potential, especially with Adam Gase not being there. And
that's crazy.
We'll see how all the wide receiver stuff shakes out. But if this offense is better, Chris Herndon is better, the offensive line I think is awesome. There's going to be opportunity for a running back, and if I can get these guys way after Michael Carter, just because Michael Carter is the sexy name, going as running back 32, 74 overall, like I can get basically Tevin Coleman double digits later, like almost another 50 something picks. I'm going to be doing it all day long and loving every minute of it.
Yeah, I see this Jets situation kind of very similarly to the way I've always approached the San Francisco 49ers backfield, in that I don't want the guy going at the top of the board from this backfield. I want the guys that are going way later, because they are also going to have a role and they're going to have weeks where they are the guy. I mean, we've seen it every year since Shanahan has been in San Francisco, and with Saleh when he was there, that team, San Francisco, the way that they ran the ball, they did not care who was getting it. The name on the back of the jersey did not matter to them. It was who's the freshest right now and who gives us the best burst. And that's one thing. Tevin Coleman has averaged over 4 yards an attempt every year of his career previous to last season. So this is a guy who can do it. He's shown it. He's great. He's a great receiver out of the backfield, something that P. Ryan was not good at. Michael Carter from North Carolina.
P. Ryan was a solid pass catcher at
the reviews
Florida.
are up in the air for Carter. So,
but yeah, I think both these guys can be a factor on all three downs. If they want to run a little more up tempo, they can do it. I think there's a complementary feel where this maybe is like a little bit more of a timeshare than we want. And if that's the case, let's go with the cheapest price who can give us basically the same numbers. I think Coleman makes a hell of a lot of sense. I think if you're in deeper leagues or in more of a dynasty, Michael P. Ryan is well worth an ad. But Coleman, I'm happy to draft him at his ADP, take my shots. And if it really is the Michael Carter show and he ends up running the show and kind of owns it, I think that's where you make that move.
Yeah, no, I love this selection, because these are the kind of running back rooms that I like to attack in fantasy football, because they're going to be the last guy on your bench and you're just kind of holding them maybe a week or two to see if something pops, and then you could cut them at no risk whatsoever to yourself. So these are the kind of people that help win you fantasy leagues, especially in week to week games.
Yep, totally. You can find interesting ways to kind of target matchups and whatnot. So let us know what you think of all these names. Let us know who some of your favorite late round running back flyers are. And there's a ton of good content up on our YouTube page, on Spotify, on iTunes, wherever you get the podcast. So make sure you go check out those old episodes. As I mentioned, check out our episode with Matt Harmon. Brian and I have been going position by position, breaking down some of our late round targets. We did quarterbacks, we did tight ends. We'll have receivers coming in the short term. We'll also be able to get back to NASCAR next week. So if you play NASCAR DFS or you want to make some NASCAR bets, come join us for that on Thursdays as well. Or I guess Fridays is when that typically goes up. And then we'll probably be doing our live stream Sunday mornings for at least the short term. And then we'll see what happens when football starts. And hopefully have a few more guests trickling through in the coming weeks, help getting you set. If there's something specific you want to see, make sure you drop that in the comments too. We're always open to, providing you the best content so you can win your fantasy leagues. And if there's something specific that would help you do that, let us know. Hit us up on Twitter at NotoriousKRO, at Greasy Rules 14. Also go over to Instagram at AOP Podcast. Give us a follow over there. We have stuff going up there all the time, different things, rankings and whatnot. So follow us over there. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.